We'll call this meeting for the Finance Committee of Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 to order. And for the spiel beforehand, this agenda is subject to revisions and additions up until the meeting time, and these items may or may not be the only things presented and discussed. Now, if I will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because Jake's. So with our one Zoomer, we do have to do roll call. So we'll start over on the left.
Doug White.
Susan Lorenz present.
Ron McKay.
Peter Roche present.
Tracy Carroll, sick present.
Thomas Arujo present.
Evans present.
Jake, I will keep checking over there. If you want to hit the hand thing, so I know you.
I'll also just yell at you if I need to. How about that?
Depends what you're gonna yell.
Yes, sure. Valid. It is being recorded. That's true.
All right, so we're here tonight to go over the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024. And just before we start on those, I just wanted to go over a couple of numbers that Serena had sent around. A couple of relevant numbers. General stabilization coming into the year was just under 1.994. Capital stabilization coming into the year was just under 1.569. And free cash for 2024, $1,175,393. All right, so we have the first article that will be relevant to us would be Article 2 from the draft, which is the convergent bill related to the cameras from 2 years ago.
I think that's it.
Do you guys have,
I don't have a copy because I wasn't here last.
I can share mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, sure.
okay,
Thank
so
you.
we,
Just so you know, when Karen sends us the agenda packet, you can, if you would like a copy, just let her know.
Oh, okay.
She'll have it printed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
As we discussed on this last week, although we are not thrilled with paying this bit, as Serena brought up, they send this to collections, then the fees with collections, legal fees, etc. This has been cut down quite a bit from the initial bill. I think, although we don't like it, I don't think we have a choice.
yeah,
We do, it's just not a choice we'd like to.
I mean, do we have
Probably not the best one.
do they have a maintenance contract, or these are the people that installed this, correct? And then they came out to fix it and they were unable to fix it.
And I don't believe there was a maintenance contract, was there?
And I mean, who was dealing with them? And, I watched the meeting last night. So I guess the town does not issue POs, correct?
It didn't seem like the chief knew who.
I don't know if
New
it was
chief.
thrown in or if it was actually started before.
McDonald.
I believe it,
McDonald.
yeah, Bob McDonald when they went in, and then Chief Cronin when the issue happened, and then,
Nichols is
yeah.
I mean, if somebody came to my house and fixed something and charged me this and didn't, to fix something and didn't do it, I don't know, but I just feel like somebody should know what the deal was.
Right, the ball was dropped somewhere. Who is in charge of contracts, et cetera,
Yeah.
in that department?
So
It should be the department head of each department Mr. Mullen was doing a lot of things for a lot of departments. But it does start in each department themselves.
And I mean, timeline might be off, but I believe that in the time frame of when this service would have happened, there were some outside things going on at that point that might have been a reason.
Yeah.
It would have been right around that time, right?
With the previous chief.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure going forward, it's something that the selectmen might sort of push for them to, be more observant about, because, this is something that is not the best circumstance.
And in the future, I know this was an old bill, but should it come out of their budget? Again, it's a tough position for Chief Cronin. He had nothing to do with this and knows nothing of it. Oh, Nickel, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, and then being in the prior year bill, it can't come out of the current year. It's got to be voted separately.
Previous cash.
And we have all kinds of documentation that shows the original bill, a letter that we sent out, them coming back with a smaller bill.
I'm not sure. That would have all gone through the police department.
Definitely have the original bill and then the one that got passed around last week.
Yeah, I've only seen the most current one, the 1758.
Could the original one have been before you even?
Maybe. I came in August of 22.
That's probably right around that.
Yeah. Because this one is dated, June of 23.
Yeah, that's
But they were probably going.
adjusted.
For a year.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Yeah, ideally. Tell them where to stick it, but
Right. I make a motion that we vote to support funding this article number 2 as written.
from
Second.
free cash.
Oh, from free cash. Thank you.
Second. All in favor? Jake, we're gonna start with you. Tom,
Fine, aye.
Peter, aye.
Aye. Run.
Susan, I.
Doug, aye.
Yeah, one of the things that I would, we had kind of talked about this in one of our previous meetings is this year coming around, this is a special meeting, so there's not, it's not the same as the main primary meeting at the beginning of the year for us, but when we're doing these next year for the department budgets and overviews, I think we should start stressing some things to them about how important it is to be as accurate as their funding request is humanly possible. And if there is budget allocated and there's something like this comes up next year, it should be reduced from their existing budget because we're going to be strapped for cash for the foreseeable future. And while this one is only, $1,700, I don't want to see somebody come back and say, oh, we got a bill for 11 grand, or I got a bill for 18 grand, or, because we're just saying, okay, yep, send it and we'll approve it. So I know this is not really the forum for that, but it is something that, and we've talked about it previously, like next year, we really need to have a conversation with every department head about this. Because, while it's not a big sum this time, it could be next time, or it could be a bunch of little sums that add up to a big sum.
The previous finance committee do? Just as a question.
So I think in the past, we've actually had more prior year bills under past town accountants, more prior year bills that ended up not getting into the correct year. So, I mean, Serena's done a great job. One, that's really a 2-year-old bill that we were fighting for a year. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had any prior year bills, which, I mean, in the past, we've had 6, 7, 8, 9 bills. So I mean, from that standpoint, Serena is doing a great
So
job.
really the future, we're looking at it being more of an anomaly
Yeah,
than a
which
standard
basically this is an
Okay.
anomaly because it's not even a 24 bill.
No,
It's a 23 bill.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I would have to agree with Jake, though, you know, if you present a budget and you say, okay, this is what it's gonna be, and then, you know, like we had at that meeting, and it's like, oh, by the way, they forgot this, and oh, by the way, they went over on this, it's like, you know, I'm sorry.
Well, it depends on the other people on the other side. Are they willing to fight for this, you know, to spend money on their end?
Right.
To go to court and to try to get the money.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a broader
sure.
conversation, right? It's just, you know, that's something we'll have when we're approaching town meeting next year and we're doing budget stuff. I think it's just maybe even we send out a memo, you know, we draft something that says, hey, guys, you know, let's just be really as much as humanly possible. We know that some of these departments there is wiggle room and gray areas and things like that as far as funding, but you know, I think it's just we can do something simple to emphasize the point again for this coming year, I think.
I need to ask a favor.
What?
Can someone keep track of where we are on free cash?
I can do that.
Okay.
And the thing with the primary bills, it really comes down to the departments as well. You know, I asked for the encumbrances and then we get into July and August and then they realize they didn't encumber the money and it's a prior year bill. So a lot of it comes from, you know, the record keeping of each department, knowing what bills they have outstanding and what has made it to my desk and what hasn't. You know, unfortunately, I see it on the end part when they're trying to pay something. I don't know, you know, I can't keep up with every department with what they have for their, you know, because, and I've said it many times that, you know, I don't know what that department is ordering. I don't know what they're buying. Like that's really beyond my control because we don't use a PO system in the small town. It is kind of hard to track these type of things.
Yeah, so continuity helps that. And when you've got turnover of police chief, then that
Kind of, yeah, a lot of things.
hurts.
Yeah, and the emails and things
Yeah.
just aren't. But I think the police department has definitely tried to streamline, you know, any invoices being emailed, and especially now with the deputy chief. I think they're starting to get into a good rhythm over there now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a ordering and buying. That's one thing. You have your budget, you know, you can order, you know, you can buy within that budget. But when you have something like this that comes up and it's something that broke and you expect the vendor to come fix it and they can't fix it and they bill you anyway, this falls out of that. I don't think you can plan for this type of a thing. And it would be more costly. I mean, we're paying the bill because it would be more costly not to.
When was the police station built? How many years?
5 years? Are we in the 5th year of the bond? Or the 7th?
Approximately, it's like 5.
Five to
Yes,
7.
7, yeah.
Of a 30-year bond.
20 for the police station, I think.
Sure. I don't, that's the treasurer's office controls the debt. I don't really
Okay.
watch
I
it.
think it was
That would be
20.
nice to know.
I'm not 100% positive, but I
But
think
you
it was
think it's a
20.
20?
Yeah. All right, so Article 3, a lot of times we've done 3 and 4 in the spring, but being the year that it is good to get this done now and while we have free cash and not have to worry about it. So this is 106,146.76 for the fourth payment of a 7-year lease on the fire engine, which generally would just come from free cash. Does anybody have any questions on that?
This is coming from free
This,
cash. If approved.
Jake, any questions?
Anyone else? No? I make a motion, we vote to recommend the sum of $106,146.76 for the fourth payment on a 7-year lease of the new fire engine
I'll second that.
from free cash.
Second,
All in favor? Doug, we'll start with you this time.
Aye.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Jake, I.
All right, and number four, along the same lines, it is the second payment on a 3-year lease on the ambulance, which we typically take that money out of the ambulance fund. So rather than free cash, it would be a transfer from the ambulance fund.
That was gonna be my only question was, does it have to go to free cash and then be paid, or does it come directly out of the ambulance fund?
It would be transferred right out of the ambulance fund.
Nice. All right.
Which, just to follow up on that, the balance as of September 25th was 560, just under 568,000.
Okay.
Any other
Listen,
questions?
I'll make a motion to approve to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $145,533.06 to be expended by the fire chief as the second payment of a 3-year lease purchase of a new ambulance, or take any other action relative thereto.
And we fund it from the ambulance fund?
Yes, funded from the ambulance fund.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Tom will-
Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, aye.
Jake?
Aye, I made the motion. That's funny. I gotta say aye again.
All right.
And could you do me a quick, that 568,000 is the balance on the.
In the ambulance fund as of
Oh,
September
that's the balance
25th.
on the ambulance.
Right, as of
Okay,
9:25.
but that's not the balance on the,
No, there's one more payment left on the lease. Yeah, so
Think
there's,
so, yeah.
It's a 3-year lease.
second of a 3-year.
The fire engine,
the ambulance.
Ambulance.
45. Yep, so the last payment will be December 20.
Ambulance.
Thank you.
Fire truck goes out to fiscal year.
Then do we have a buyout just out of curiosity? I know it's a lease payment, but do we have a buyout purchase option on an ambulance afterwards?
You do.
Yeah, they're all like dollar buyouts.
They don't mind.
Wait.
All right, Article 5 is a lease payment on the excavator, second year payment on a 4-year lease on the excavator. We did the first year at annual, $31,094.29. Generally, we would do that through free cash. Any questions on that?
That doesn't come out of the highway superintendent's budget.
No, the leases we typically will do out of free cash.
Free cash.
Any kind of equipment.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend the sum of $31,094.29 as proposed in Article 5 from free cash.
Second,
All in favor? Doug, we'll start with you this time.
Doug, aye.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Jake?
You guy.
All right, I am going to skip. We'll come back to this 3, 4 that I want to come back to, 5 that I want to come back to, 6, 12, 17, 18, 19. If nobody has any issues with that.
Nope.
Okay. So the next one then would be number 7, which is $36,000 to fund the settlement of the Dayton Police Officer Local 306 collective bargaining agreement. Typically, what we like to do with anything that's going to be an ongoing normal expense would be to raise and appropriate, and we do have the availability in the levy to raise and appropriate both this and number 8 for the settled contracts.
But if we do not use it from free cash and we're raising an appropriate, are we increasing the budget?
It would be increasing the budget, but still within the levy. what would end up happening if we don't put it into raise and appropriate, then as the increases go in next year, we're putting this plus the increase in to next year's.
Right, if we don't do it from free cash.
If we
right.
don't do it from raise and appropriate. Because then that it won't build into the levy limit.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It'll be like double next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, can I just ask this my question?
Yeah,
Is there somebody on the finance committee as like the secretary taking notes?
sort of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's why,
I am too, and it's recording as well. so-
right, yeah. Been using the recordings to do that.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, so he's using less, what is it? Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, yeah. I got my little AI buddy going for me.
Any questions or discussion on 7?
I make a motion, we vote to recommend Article number 7 as presented to vote, as a vote to raise and appropriate the amount of $36,000 as payment of the recently settled Dayton Police Officers Local Bargaining Agreement.
Second,
All in favor? Tom will start.
Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, I.
Jake? And number 8 is similar. It's 17,362 for communications, with 16,962 being for personnel and 400 for expenses. And the same settled the 911 dispatchers, Local 502 collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to raise and appropriate or transfer from free cash $17,362 to fund the communications account 215. As stated in Article 6.
As raised and
Oh,
appropriate,
Sorry, on Article 8, sorry. Dyslexia.
He said raise and appropriate, I think.
as raised and appropriate, Jake?
Yep. Raise and appropriate. I said raise and appropriate or transfer from free cash.
Yeah, so now when you make the motion, you've got to choose. It's choose your own adventure.
Gotcha. Well, we typically would do free cash here, right?
So because it's salaries on a completed negotiation, we would try to put it in raise and appropriate. We do have the room.
Okay. All right, let's do that then. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve Article 8 as written to raise and appropriate this sum of $17,362 from the communications account 215, and from the personnel expenses of $16,962, and for $400 for the communications department's expense line.
Second,
All in favor? Doug?
Doug, I.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Jake,
Jake?
aye.
All right. There's nothing new on number 9.
No.
Okay. So there are a couple things that might have to, we'll schedule a meeting right before the special town meeting. And this might be one thing that just has to be discussed, but
If we have no definitive number, is it not voted on?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have a
Yeah.
definitive
Yeah.
number, then it would have to wait until June.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty close. I had a brief discussion with Chief McGee this morning. So I'm hoping definitely around the 14th that they'll have the contract ratified.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
so number 10 is $9,000 for 100 no parking signs, which as Mr. Ferry mentioned was going to be at intersections mostly along Williams.
Yes.
Which seemed mostly, I'm gonna guess there's a lot of Amazon in there and people probably not paying attention.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this one's just kind of a safety thing, so
Right, we voted that there were no parking zones at the town meeting, so
Yeah,
you gotta mark them.
yeah. And this would typically, we would do free cash.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend Article number 10 as a free cash payment of $9,000 as noted in the article.
Second,
All in favor? Tom?
Aye, Tom, aye.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, I.
Jake, I.
All right. Number 10 along the same lines.
Number 11.
Number 11, thank you, Tracy. 10,000, that was where I got the 10.
Right.
The number got reduced to 10,000, and that is to fix the traffic control cabinet over by the Aggie School.
So I should say repair, right, instead of purchase.
Correct.
Yeah, so change that to repair. And the dollar amount to 10,000.
So this is 10,000, not 32?
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they've found out that they could fix it and didn't have to fully replace it.
Oh, well, good for them.
So when I had asked if the school paid taxes,
They do not.
so because these, like this traffic control box there we're investing in it because of the school there. Do we have any recourse for any reimbursements along the way? I mean, because
Tom didn't indicate any.
Yeah, he didn't.
Aware of any. I think it's because like we own that part of the street there.
but I got it. But I guess we're incurring costs for an entity that we're not getting any taxes from.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he did kind of say that, the town is responsible for the road. Yeah, I think that's the way he tried to explain it. from what I-
Yeah, I understand his
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I'm getting where Sue is going
Yeah.
as well. It's like,
We're responsible for upgrades, et cetera,
yes.
with,
Yeah, I guess if one of the things that he had mentioned was that someone was almost hit. If someone were hit, they would sue Bristol Aggie, they would sue us, they would sue the crossing guards.
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I see the need for it.
But yeah, it does seem like we should be able to get something.
So can we send them a bill?
We'll just come back and do the assessment.
They would add it to their budget.
That's right.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend that the town vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $10,000 to be expended by the highway superintendent for the repair of a traffic control cabinet to be located at the Center Street crosswalk in the area of Bristol County Agricultural High School.
It's free cash.
I said available funds, same thing? Or no?
It's
From
from
free cash. I will specify free cash.
Second,
All in favor?
Doug, I.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Jake, I.
All right,
10 is better than 32.
No, way better.
we're gonna skip 12 for now.
No, I'm here before, I'm here for this Article 13, only for Pat Gales,
Okay,
who wasn't able to be here.
okay, okay.
She asked me to sit in.
Okay, no problem.
Which is where we are.
Yeah. Before we, is there anything that you'd like to speak to the article about?
I'm not prepared to speak to it, but I'm a resident and I work with Pat Gales at the Historical Society, as well as projects she's doing and at the Bristol, Massachusetts Society of Genealogists. And so we're into history and it's a big deal. The country is going to be 250 years old. We had put out a $30,000 estimate based on previous costs from other town anniversaries. and printing and porta johns and just all kinds of things. They're very expensive. So we pared that all down. We were gonna ask for 30,000 over 3 years, but we also recognize the financial place that the town is right now. And we live here too and pay taxes. So it's a tough situation. So what we did was, like Pat said, got it down to one big event, which would be held in 2026. But the reason we have to come now is because there's so many events all over the country. If we want this big event in October of 2026, we have to guarantee funds to them in February of 25. And that's $8,000. So we literally just cut everything down except for, we have to promise them we have the money in order for them to book us. We do plan on trying to get volunteers, sponsors, not just asking businesses to give us money, but for some time or whatever their business might do. Maybe they can help us with that aspect of it, and do as much as we can on our own. You know, we understand the situation. You know, it's a little embarrassing to actually ask for any money, but it's important, I think. I think it's important to educate the children and to celebrate.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
So this 8,000, is it full payment for whatever activity you're doing for this, or is it a down payment?
It is a full payment.
Okay.
It is a bare minimum full payment. Rich Gunther is on our committee and he is part of the 13th Continental that they work with Rehoboth Minutemen. And he, with help and volunteers, he thinks he can get it done for 8,000. So that's all we'd be committed to on 25. It could go over a little bit and would have a year and a half to come up with a little bit more money.
Yep.
If we have to. But that's what they need to hear from us, that we will pay for it if we book it.
Okay.
The Aggie School is hopefully, potentially, it's not written in stone yet, but going to be the location. They seem to be very enthused about it, so there'd be help coming from that aspect as well.
Okay.
So we try to do what we could to help, to have something. So Dayton has something.
Yeah.
What we might come for in a few years, or maybe not at all, is to come out with a book at the end of all of this, maybe in 27, with biographies and, more about it wasn't just the soldiers that fought. Dayton played a big part in supplementing the war, and was left in really not very good shape financially. 600 families moved out of Dayton after the war, after being very successful before the war. So it's history and it's important to us. That's why we ask. We understand the situation though.
No, the explanation helped.
And she said it was going to be October of 26?
October of 26, yeah. It would be a weekend event where they would camp out. They would have activities, so the people could go, we could go through. Children would have events that they could participate in. They would give candlelight tours at night. You could see the workings during the day, as well as what it takes to sleep over. And then on the Saturday, I'm not sure if it was the Saturday or the Sunday, they would actually recreate a battle, a real battle. And there's something to see. It's pretty amazing.
Any other questions?
No.
Where does the money come from?
That is the decision.
Are there any budgets that were underutilized?
So that's everything in free cash is the underutilized or underutilized expenses or excess revenue.
Too bad you couldn't sponsor it through USAA. That would be nice.
Is it possible to table it for right now and go through the rest of the articles and pay what we need to pay out of free cash and see what's left at the end before we commit to it right now? Is that an option?
I'm fine with that.
I know it's probably not the answer that you,
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I understand. I
Okay.
understand the situation.
I just think we have some serious financial things that we need to really address right now. And even if we just wait to take a look at it at the end right here, when we've gone through all the things that do have to be paid, and then see what's left at the end. Does that
That's fair.
sound reasonable?
Mhm.
Are you okay with that, Jake?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay.
all right, so we'll go on to 14. 14 is one police vehicle for 2020, for the year 2025. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was that we have tried to buy one vehicle per year. And there were, over the last 10 years, there's been at least, it seems like they go in groups where we can't buy one for 2 years, and then it'll go for a few years, and then we can't buy one for 2 years. So the only kind of similar to the lease payments, where a lot of times we would wait for something like this till the spring, if we didn't do one last year, but we did. It would make sense to me to do one now so that we're sure that we're doing one in 2025.
Well, in June, at the June town meeting, we voted,
That was 24's car.
okay, but we had just got the other one that was new, got totaled, got replaced, so
Yeah.
we have that one on. So even though we may not have kept up, right now, they've got a new one and a new one coming from the June meeting.
I think we've got them all now, right? We've got, yeah. all
Oh, and
the-
even the June meeting, we've got that one now too?
The one that from June was the one that came 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, 583 with 200 miles on it. He got 2 weeks before. And 582.
And replace the total
Was-
vehicle.
Yeah, and
nice.
I want to say that one, we might have gotten June-ish.
We got that one.
It's 23.
I think we had to
Yeah.
pay the invoice in like April or May.
Okay. That was the $5,000 difference between the insurance and the,
I'm gonna tend to agree. I guess, I don't understand, unless these cars are inoperable, why we're buying a new car every single year. Especially at the cost of $75,000 a pop. Did we get any, and I was on for part of the meeting, but had to hop off. Is there a quote unquote like staffed police vehicle level that they are ideally at? And if there is, where are we compared right now to how many cars we have active?
yeah, so he did hand out the list with the miles and the recent maintenance on the cars. The one that he said that this one would, the current chief's car would replace a car with 158,000 miles on it. 2014.
But it's still working okay though, I guess is my question.
It's working. Right now it's down to detail. So I think what they would do would be basically move the chief's car to more of an active, move one of the older actives to detail. So it's basically shift everything down.
And that's sort of what they're doing,
Says
yeah.
they're going 100 miles a shift, and there's a whole host of maintenance issues that you get. And it seems like earlier than I would have thought, but these maintenance issues are coming up sooner, so I think we probably have to replace things sooner rather than later, because transfer cases aren't cheap, rebuild motors, and get these off the auction.
And it's more the hours than the miles because
Right, it's the idle hours. It's not really the miles.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
I think overall, I'd like to know what the police budget in this town, how it compares to other comparable towns. I was down at the police station a while back and I drove in and I was amazed at the vehicles. 2 pickup trucks, a Tahoe, And I heard that every police officer has his own cruiser. Is that true? I don't know. I also don't understand why Dayton has a detective. So I don't mean to pick on the police department, but all I know is that the taxes in this town are too high, and we need to generate revenue, and we need to slice some from the budget, some money from the budgets. And the police budget is one of the largest. And again, I don't mean to pick on the police. I want a good, strong police force. I want them to have what they need. But again, I drove in and I think I counted 11 cruisers. I don't see a
Also-
cruiser on the street. I
I totally agree. I completely
I
agree.
hardly ever see a cruiser go by my house. I had an ATV stolen a couple of years ago. And again, I don't mean to rag on the police, but they did absolutely nothing. What do we have a detective for? So it's just, I think it's something, I don't know what the process is if we sit down with each department and go over their budgets, but I'd like to see their budget. And,
Well, that's next year. That's for June,
okay.
right? That's what we do for that.
So I personally think we should put this on hold until we do that.
I tend to agree on a lot of what you just said, and I'm also okay with kicking the can, so to speak. And if they want to approach us next year for it, then we can have that conversation relative to their overall annual budget. But I tend to agree.
That's my 2 cents.
So just for everyone's educational moment, you can go on the DOR local services website and you can see the police, the fire, the highway budgets for all 351 cities and towns. It's something I've done in the past, which I know, I'm sorry. I had free time. And at the time, definitely Dayton compared to other towns was we were on the lower end.
For the police budget or, okay.
Yeah.
Right, but we're also in the lower end for population.
No,
So
so Jake, yeah, what I did was I did it
Oh, okay.
based on, on per capita.
gotcha. Okay.
But definitely, I would encourage everybody to go out there and take a look.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I didn't know that was.
I actually
searchable.
did that on the
Good.
revenue side, but I
Yeah,
didn't do it on the
definitely
expense side.
expenses too.
Can we make a motion and vote on it, whether it's going to be yay or nay?
We haven't had a,
Put forward a motion that the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $75,000 for the purchase of one fully equipped administrative police vehicle, including a radio antenna and any other related accessories, or take any other action relative thereto from free cash.
Before I second this, we are not talking raise and appropriate, we are talking transfer from free cash.
for a car, we would, typically.
So I'm gonna second his motion with the transfer from free cash.
Okay. We'll go on this side.
Doug, aye?
Susan, nay.
Sorry, was it second? Oh, Susan.
Sue seconded, yeah.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
I'm sorry, did Susan nay? Can I abstain? Or do
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I'd like to abstain.
Yeah,
I don't
Jake,
wanna-
nay.
So 4, 2, 1.
Actually, I'm going to change it to nay. If that's okay.
That's fine.
So 4 yes, 3 no.
Before you go on, can I just, I don't need to stay to watch your whole meeting, but I'm going to leave. I just wanted to say thank you for considering our request. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
And just, I want everyone to vote the way that they feel. So no one should hesitate.
So no judgment.
Again, I want the police to have what they need, but again,
But not
I
more.
just, yeah, it's, I don't know, I think, first of all, I think the police station is overblown. Why didn't we build a combination police fire station? And that's my 2 cents.
That was a discussion we had with them at the time too. We don't need to vote on money coming out of opioid.
I think you.
Do
have
since-
that- Yeah.
okay.
It has a financial.
All right, so number 15 would be,
So I have one question.
yeah,
So being at 4-3, we recommend?
so 4-3, the warrant will say Finance Committee recommends.
Okay.
And again, when we get to the meeting, everyone vote the way that they want to vote. Just because Finance Committee recommends doesn't mean that all 7 of us are going to be voting yes for all 75 articles in the. Okay, Sue?
Oh, yes, I make a motion, we vote to recommend Article 15 as presented.
Any questions on that? Jake, I don't know if you were there when they talked about that.
I don't think I was,
So,
but I don't have any questions. I read through it, from previous conversations. I think I'm all right.
okay, we did have 21,000 in the settlement account that can only be spent on things related. Any questions on that?
How do we spend the other 19,000?
That was one of my points to both the chief and the Board of Health, that,
They're restricted,
hopefully,
they're very
yeah,
restricted.
very
on
restrictive.
views.
Hopefully they'll start coming up with some programs that we can use the money as it's coming in.
Mhm.
Yeah. I took a webinar and, because we received such a low dollar amount, they were basically suggesting us to work with another town and to collaborate and to do something else with another town. That would, so little money, it'd really be hard for us to.
Yeah, so like Taunton got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or are they saying to gather small towns?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Small towns around and we all kind of pool our small money together and put together something.
To do what?
So, yeah, it can be like awareness, prevention. And it was more of things to help supplement programs that were already in place or already established.
Right, like the DARE program that they used to have in the schools. I'm surprised we're not using funds on something like that.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if this is something similar to DARE, because they're doing handouts to all the kids, right?
right, drug prevention.
Yeah,
But it is, kind of more controlled through the Board of Health. And I think Barbara, the chairman, was also on that webinar.
What's sad is that none of this can be recommended for any type of religious group or something like that. Knew that.
Yeah.
And yet those are the most productive. If you take a look at the actual, if you research what it is, the percentages are way higher with religious groups than they are
For
with-
success rate.
for success rate, yes. So extremely higher.
Sue, did you have a motion?
I did.
Okay, it has
And
not
it
been
was
seconded yet.
seconded.
It was seconded? Okay. Tom, we'll start with you.
Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, aye.
Susan, I.
Doug, aye.
Jake, I.
All right. 16 does have a dollar amount, but it's all CPC, so we don't need that. 17 and 18 and 19, I want to hold. And that might be the end of. We don't have to do anything with
Can't take it.
Fine. Stuff, yeah.
fines and lienable municipal charges.
I had a question. The fines, where does that money go?
So,
Right now it goes to the general fund, right, Serena?
Yeah, which, the municipal, the conservation charges.
Yes. Right, conservation.
Right.
So at the same time, there was a couple, they might also be requesting a revolving fund coming up in June. Because I know the police needed to change their revolving as well, and I bumped both of those to June. So I didn't read in depth what the conservation wanted for a revolving fund, but I think it was something to do with fines. But if this goes into place, you know, it's kind of the gray area, like collectible funds are a general fund. So we'll have to see specifically what they're looking for to create a revolving fund.
Well, I know with the fine collection, they were hoping to gather some of the funds for repeated visits, say, for inspection sites or whatever, and this way you're getting some money in order to pay these employees.
Yeah, so
Offset.
so on the repeat visits, that's right, they did say that. So that probably could be something that could go into the revolving, but like the initial inspection, like the fines that we have in place right now, or the fees to go inspect is general fund.
Yeah, like I wouldn't expect the fees to go towards clothing allowances and things like that.
I mean, it's all.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Because there's an application fee and then there's fines, and where does the application fee, is that just another revenue source?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
goes general funds?
Mhm.
Do we have a projection on how much they have collected on these applications and fines in the recent past?
I would have to look up in the system for
Is
that.
it significant? I mean,
I don't think it's that much.
Yeah. Um, so in my mind, I've tried to tie 6 and 12 together. Leaving 17, 18, and 19 together. If we could, maybe we'll go back to number 6, Article 6.
Do we know where we're at free cash?
942,000 is available.
2,000, okay.
So 542, 942, okay.
942.
And what is the amount of the 1.3.5 that we get back? I forget off the top of my head.
56%.
56%, but we have to put that up front, or how does that work?
Yeah, we would be spending it and it would then come back and,
And from a
yeah,
timing perspective, it would be in the same budget year. So even though we're voting on the 1.3, it's really the 44% or whatever that we're paying in the same in one budget year.
conceivably, I mean, I probably wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
Right.
I would probably say that if we're voting on it in November, you're probably not going to see the reimbursement before June 30th.
And we need to put all of it before, or is it paid out in installments?
So the physical payment would be in installments, but the funding of it would be all at once.
Right. I guess I just want to, if we have 900 in free cash and we want to spend 1.3, right? And if it's all coming in all out, or if it's all coming out at once, it doesn't matter what we're getting back if we don't have it. So that's what I was just trying to understand, but it doesn't look like that's gonna put us upside down. So that's all I was trying to understand, is just making sure that we're not upside down.
Okay. Correct. You got it.
Okay.
So I guess just the one thing that I wanted to talk about, I had met with superintendent, the business manager, selectman Karen, and the acting town administrator, interim town administrator, to go over some of the numbers as to why they were requesting the 1.355. And there were four schools that they had compared, pass this around for anybody who has any questions on it. But the schools are, it was Hingham, Winchester, Amherst, and Maynard. And I'll just pass it around. The highlighted numbers are the ones that they're, what builds into the 1355. One of the things that I had come up with was one that the numbers on the Hingham side are crazy.
Right, that's, the community does not even
And
compare to us.
is partly because it's Hingham, it's partly because they had the project managers and the design team and the environmental side of things look at 10 different sites. And then 10 different sites that at least one of them had significant issues with
Wetlands.
conservation, yeah.
And that's the one they picked.
And that's the one they
right?
picked, yeah. So I kind of tossed that out. And then one of the things that I noticed was that some of the costs seem to be coming down. So just looking at the job starting, so the last three, I had come up with a cost of 1.2. I did talk to superintendent this morning and he felt that 1.25, they would be able to get everything done. We have already approved 150 in the 2023 annual town meeting. So 150 is spent and already set aside for this. So it's a matter of the rest of it. In 2023, the school kicked back 1.2 million in excess funds over and above what they could keep from their E&D. That's the majority of the balance in the capital stabilization fund. We set that aside at the time with the thought that that would go towards a feasibility study.
Correct. Now, the State House, their budget and their pay per pupil, our funding per pupil, it at least doubled
From
before our assessment.
right.
So are we banking on getting at least that much back?
I would say no.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say,
So
no.
when the new numbers came out, and Mike was still around, I asked him what the difference would be, and it was like 80 grand. The increase in that cost per student.
Okay. Well, where I stand, we've only got so much money.
Yeah.
We can only pay for so, and right now, education between BP, the Aggie, and our own district. So the money's got to come from somewhere. I'm expecting that our assessment should go down if the state now is giving double, at least double per pupil as far as the money following the child. And I certainly hope the assessment is not growing. If they want, if they want money to be diverted, which is exactly what we're asking for in this feasibility study, it's got to come from somewhere. We cannot just keep feeding the educational monster that has been created and not have any money left for anything else. That's why we're arguing, discussing about a police cruiser. We do want to invest in the community, but it's going to be more than education.
One of the things that, Peter, you have brought up, this 1355 was the guideline given to attract bids for the project. And you had made a comment, if I remember, where you said, well, if we say we're not going to do 1355, we're going to do 1.2. Do you still think that's an attractive, bid amount to go out to attract enough bids for the project? And I believe the response was, you should still have interest at that. So my only thought about it is, do you want to make an edit based upon that comment and recommendation between the 1355 and bring it down a little bit? especially if we're all thinking that the reason it's so high is because of these projects that had the wetlands issues that were kind of a little bit of an outlier.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, it shouldn't be 1355. It
So then
should be
let's
less.
change it. Yeah, so let's change it. Right? I mean, that's our job. You did the work. You're the accountant. Right? I mean,
Can I ask one more question?
You guys, as many
This
questions.
1355, is
Yep.
it already considering the 150 we put aside?
It is not, because no one had remembered that until Paul.
Okay.
So
Mention
subtract 150 from it and also subtract
So,
down to the 1.2.
yeah, so that
So
would
just a
be,
little over a million.
yeah, so at 1.2 it would be 1,050,000. At 1.25, it would be 1.1 million. Then, I mean, my thought would be that the money is in capital stabilization for that purpose. So that would be where it would all come from, 100% of it.
right. But we should try to be, I mean, we should try to keep from lighting that money on fire, right? So,
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
so if we have the 150, we subtract that from whatever you think, and we all agree that, that number should be. So, if you think 1.2 or we think 1.2 is correct, then what is it?
50.
1,050,050,
Mhm.
and make that the suggestion. And, if for whatever reason we don't have bids, then we'll have to edit. But the person that was smarter than us when they do this stuff told us that that's still attractive to be at 1.2. So I say we do that.
How low can we go for it to still be attractive?
Well, you won't know until you do it.
That's exactly
Right.
right.
But we could always edit upwards.
I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess the only, so for the next opportunity, we would have to adjust or to add to would be annual town meeting.
Mhm.
And Susan brought up a good point about the space over there where the high school is.
Mhm.
So we're not dealing with a wetland issue, and adding on shouldn't cost as much to do a feasibility study if we got isolated on that as a project.
The fact that there's only one site they would be looking at,
Right.
yeah.
Right. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think we lower the number a bit. I think the number's inflated. And then the other, Peter, you had made another comment, which I think is completely correct, is, hey, we have this money set aside for this feasibility study, and we go get bids, and every single person says, oh, it's actually going to cost me 1.355, right, to get it done. People are gonna run up to that knowing that the money's there. So I think we can probably lower it a bit.
What number can we come up with?
1, 2 seem to be the averages from what I've seen.
Mhm. So then we would be asking for 1,055,000.
1050.
So in the motion, you would just have to say both funding sources.
Yeah, so if we want to go to a motion, I'll read a suggested motion and then we can go
I
from
like
there.
that.
All right. Just make sure I got that. So Article 6 would be to see if the town will vote to transfer from capital stabilization. No, so to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds 1.2 million to be expended under the direction of the Dayton Elementary School Building Committee to conduct a feasibility study to identify current deficiencies, blah, blah, blah.
And then do you make another recommendation of the sum of $150,000 to be expended from, where is that located?
Yeah, so that's what I'm reading this one now. And propose construction options that meet current and future needs at Dayton Elementary School, 1250 Somerset Avenue, Dayton. To be funded with $150,000 from Article 32 of the 2023 annual town meeting. And $1,050,000 from capital stabilization, the transfer from capital stabilization.
Great.
That be right, Serena?
Yes.
Okay,
Second,
I can't make the motion.
I make a motion that we vote to recommend the motion in Article 6 as presented by Peter Roach.
Thank you.
and second.
All in favor? Doug?
Doug, aye.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Jake, aye.
All right, so then the reason that I thought 6 and 12 were tied together. So 12 is said the $700,000 for the bridge project. As Tom said last week, we have to spend this money to be able to get the $2.7 million federal grant. So to me,
Is guaranteed.
which is guaranteed. So that leaves, if we, by taking $1,050,000 out of capital stabilization, and I would be interested in capital outlays opinion on it. But since a bridge would certainly be something that lasts a long time, my thought here was that we could do half out of capital stabilization and half out of free cash.
Okay, I have one question. Out of these numbers that we have for our account balances,
Yep.
the 150,000 that was already voted for the.
Is not in any of these
is-
numbers.
Okay, thank you.
So anything that's been voted as a separate article in the past it sits off, basally off
It's
the
just off
balance
the
sheet
sheet.
until
Okay.
it's spent.
Thank you.
It's restricted.
Was this turning into a vehicle bridge? I remember there was a discussion of, it just looked like a lot of the people that were living on the bridge were in favor of it, just keeping it as a pedestrian bridge. Is this just to reconstruct as a pedestrian bridge, or are they gonna make it so that vehicles are
Pedestrian.
going?
Not cars.
Okay, cool.
Pretty sure they
I was
were.
just curious. I mean, the impact is, yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, so Jake Serena says pretty sure keep it as a pedestrian.
Yeah, it's great. I don't think there's a need to have it anything other than a pedestrian bridge. Especially when the neighbors don't want it.
Do we know who gets to do the project?
I don't think it's that far along, right?
So for
He's
this, we have a tentative contract with Beta Group.
for the engine, this is the engineering,
Engineering.
and he had a quote on the engineering, but the actual bridge construction, that part of it hasn't been out to bid
Did
yet.
that out.
Well, could have done it. How's our bid process work in this town? Do we give deference to construction companies that are in town, in the state?
So we followed the 30B laws. So, you know, it depends on the dollar value. So something like this would have to be a proposal for bids, and then they would probably have to judge it on not just the lowest bid, the criteria. It's two separate packages, so they'll have like the criteria of the company in one package and evaluate all of those, and then the cost would be opening a second package. So this probably wouldn't fall under a pick the lowest bidder one. It'd be some credentials in there where you could justify not picking the lowest bidder.
Do we discriminate based on whether or not it's going to be a company that's within the state that's going to be hiring people who?
No, there's no restrictions on them.
There isn't.
They would be qualified with the
Within the.
highway departments, the state highway department, yeah, to be able to bid and bonded here.
Just like to see the locals get it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we put it out to everywhere, advertising, you know, in different locations, and then what we get is what we get.
No, in general, obviously for a local company, it's going to be a cheaper job for them to do it because you don't have to rent a space to store equipment and the travel involved.
Right.
So then you're hoping to spit, like 351,700 out of the capital and general stabilizations fund to split that amount then?
So yeah, my thought was 351,
7?
739 out of capital stabilization and 351 out of free cash.
Oh,
That'll leave us with what, 200-ish left in capital stabilization?
So how,
160, 169, call it.
169.
And you know, as you alluded to, once that money does come back for the reimbursement, we should put that money back in.
Right,
which would have to be.
agreed.
Yeah, which would have to be a separate vote at a separate special or annual meeting.
And on the 703 number, I know that we need to spend that to get the federal money. Is this like the total cost of this bridge reconstruction? Is this 703 from us, or is there going to be an additional, in June or next, following year, an additional vote?
Tom said this was our skin in the game. He said this was all we would have to be putting in.
That's
right.
great. That's awesome. Okay.
A webinar next week on this federal grant, because I did start asking around, I'm like, I don't have any documentation about this. So there is a webinar, I believe, next week, a Zoom meeting with the Serpent and somebody that represents the state regarding this.
Jake,
I think if Tom could talk about this when we go to vote at special town meeting, I think that would be outlining that, hey, we're going to do the 703. Yes, that's a lot of money, but we're getting 2.7 or something like that from,
yeah.
from
2.7, yeah.
yeah. So I think that's an important thing to say. Hey guys, like it actually costs, 3.4.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do that. Did you hear, Serena? There's going to be a webinar next week on the
Great.
grant.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. All right. I'll hop on that then.
Muddy Creek.
Okay, so how are we writing this one then? Can we just say, I make a motion to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of 703, 739 to be divided equally between free cash and capital stabilization fund for the expansion of the Board of Selectmen and additional fund to the Pleasant Street Bridge reconstruction project or any action there relative thereto? Or do we have to use dollars?
I'm fine with the way he read that motion.
Serena's fine with that.
Cool. That way we don't have to do math.
Math is hard.
My question is, this is a walking bridge or a driving bridge?
I believe it's a walking.
Walking.
A walking bridge.
Pleasant Street?
And where is it from?
Pleasant Street, it's over by
I
what's
know what
that?
Pleasant Street is. I'm trying to visualize where that bridge is.
I think it's down by the Somerset line, isn't it?
No, it's by the Segregated River.
Yeah.
It's by what?
It's over the Segregated River. It's by the old white church or old it's literally like right on the way to the high school if you're going up Williams.
Pleasant Street by the high school. Pleasant
So-
Street down on the water,
Right.
on the river.
Pleasant Street's along the river.
Near Broad Cove Street?
I think it's farther down.
Something Muddy Cove.
Yeah, so is it
Yes.
the bridge that gets you across on that walking trail?
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be.
where
a
everybody goes
driving
fishing.
Yeah,
Bridge,
yeah.
Yes.
right.
Right by the yacht club?
No, further down,
Almost,
so if
on
you
your,
walk down
almost to
the-
Somerset.
It's almost on the Somerset
Right.
line.
Hard Street, and there's an
It's the train tracks. It's the train tracks.
So we're gonna have a bridge that connects, because when you get to the end there, you can't get all the way back out to Pleasant Street. There's a stretch of water there. It looks like there was an old bridge there at one time. You can walk that entire trail by starting at Sweet Snow.
Correct.
So if you see that train track that comes out of Sweet Snow, follow that down and you'll see where there's a gap. It wasn't the driving bridge. Because I was thinking about the driving bridges along there, and they're like, I drive over them all the time. They don't look like they're in too bad shape.
Oh, wait, I'm thinking of the street. I'm thinking of Briggs Street is what I'm thinking of.
Yes, that's the walking bridge you were talking about. This one, I think, is a driving bridge.
Okay, we're thinking about two different things.
I can follow up with Tom.
That would
I
be
don't have
great.
His number, I would just text him.
For these kind of monies and then needing to get engineers involved to the tune of 2.7 million to build a bridge. I don't think this is a walking bridge.
Yeah, I would think it was this bridge.
Gotta be the muddy, it's gotta be the one off Muddy Cove Lane then.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
Probably Tricentennial Park.
Yep.
It's gotta be that
That
one.
bridge now.
I think that's,
I think.
There's not even any
I think
signs
the
on it.
Concrete underneath.
it's
Oh.
falling out, yeah.
Because there's no signs that say.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No pickup truck, I mean, no tractor trailers.
Right in there.
Yeah,
Right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, so you're on the right track.
drive at your own risk.
For years, we were getting warned before we got this bridge over here, the one-way bridge, right? The signs, don't tow your trailer over it.
Yeah, that's my fault. I was thinking of Briggs.
Yep,
Which I think is another project. That's on
That's it.
Tom's list.
I think
for
that's.
safety
the,
concerns, yeah.
Yeah,
Conservation Department.
okay. So I think I mean, if there's no other question, I think I made the motion already. I'm happy to do it again. I don't know if we're all
That's
right with
fine.
that.
I just wanted clarity of where it was. Motion's
Yeah.
fine. I second.
Start with Tom. Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, aye.
Jake, I.
Serena, do you have an update on where we are in free cash right now?
$590,524.
595.24.
Yes.
We'll leave it up
Left or spent?
left.
Available.
So now we can go back to 13.
Yeah, we've got 13, 17, 18, and 19 left.
Well, we should probably get 19 out of the way, right? Because I don't think we really have a choice on that one.
Well,
We do.
we do, the amount.
So I'll tell you my thought. We've liked to put 125 in the past. And we're obviously doing a lot better job than most towns in the state. I also know that, well, at least my opinion is that the Board of Selectmen are going to look for some kind of a token into capital stabilization and stabilization. Regardless of the amount, they made it known at the annual town meeting that they want a token. So my thought was, we give them a token and we put 30 into 17, 30 into 18, and 30 into 19. And if we have more free cash in the spring, we can do more to either one or all of those.
What did you say again? I'm sorry.
30, 30, and 30.
Well, I might be looking at the wrong thing. Is at 19 I have for the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They want 90.
They want 90. So you're saying do 30, 30, 30?
Yeah.
That was my thought, because I think if we say 90 there, I think they're still gonna look for something into stabilization and capital stabilization.
And at town meeting, was it 25,000 we voted for
Yeah,
OPEB?
35.
35?
Yeah,
Goes
for-
into the operating budget.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be cautious with free cash, depending on the debt exclusion vote, really might need free cash to balance our budget on the 14th. So just be cautious to not,
Bring it down to zero.
yeah.
So that would bring us to 500,
So 500.
524.
And, you know, we put in 417 for this budget alone, so just be cautious.
I like the 3 for 1. 30, 30, 30.
Yeah, I like that too.
How do you feel about that?
I'm good with 500,000 as free cash, like,
Okay.
but not really any lower than that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I really didn't want to go under either. I mean, just to be blunt, if the override doesn't pass, yeah, layoffs will be before we meet.
Mhm.
We'll start before we meet.
Yeah, and with layoffs come vacations
Vacations and-
nobody has used their vacation.
Mhm.
That's gonna be a ton of money.
Unemployment
that's-
rates go up.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that will be the use of our free cash in the second half of the year.
So 30, 30, 30 gets us to where you're comfortable with, Serena?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it.
How do we say it?
Yeah, you want to just do each?
I make a motion that we vote to recommend for Article 17 to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $30,000 to the stabilization account.
Second,
All in favor, Doug?
Doug, I.
Susan, I.
Ron, I.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Article 18, I make a motion, we vote to recommend to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed 30,000 to the capital stabilization account.
Second.
All in favor, Tom? Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, I.
Jake, aye.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend Article 19 to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $30,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund established to cover the unfunded actuarial liability for the retirees' healthcare and life insurance benefits.
Second.
All in favor? Tom, I.
Tracy, I.
Peter, I.
Ron, I.
Susan, I.
Doug, I.
Jake, aye.
And so that gets us to $500,524 in free cash.
And so this Article 13 then for the anniversary.
I'm really on the fence about this.
I am also.
It's not that I don't care about history or, and I'll tell you why, and it could be two separate things. So most of you know I'm vice chair of the Friends of the Dighton Library, okay? So we're helping to fund things in this library. I just spent 2 months putting together a golf tournament to give the trustees $10,000. There are many ways to raise $8,000. And I just feel like right now Dighton is like right here, especially with this BP thing looming over our heads. And I find it hard to just say, yes, you can have $8,000. That's just my opinion. I'm a money person and, you spend it where you really need it and other things you just try and be more creative to come up with the funds. I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with that.
Well, it's like anything. I guess there's no reason why they can't look for support from outside groups. I was joking about before about USAA, but hey, listen, I tell you, when times are tough, you look who has got the money.
And I appreciate the fact that, I saw the first number when I thought, no. And I appreciate the fact that they brought it down to where they did. But, and you know, if you look at it, there's a big difference between 30 and 8. How did you get it down that low? You know, was the 30 just elevated because you wanted to throw some extra balloons in there, or what was it that you needed? Because that's a big difference in money.
I think the 30 was what they thought the total cost was going to be, and the 8 was the required deposit.
Yeah, the 30
So,
for 3 years.
right.
Oh, so then next year and the year after, they would come back to us for the other funding.
Well, she said the initial was they were going to do $10,000 3 years in a row. And then they just came with a 30 all at once, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So I think that's what that was, which was nice to understand that the deposit requirement was only $8,000, which is, I agree where you're coming from. Like, we should just be talking about the deposit right now. We should not be talking about the $30,000.
Right.
And so, yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to bring up is we do have a reserve fund for the finance committee, which I believe is at 50 grand right now. And I don't know if that's something that we could tap into for the 8 grand if we all decided that it was worth the money instead of taking it from free cash. But I also agree that there are other funding sources that they could probably get the 8 grand from. So I'm also okay with saying, hey, can you find it from somewhere else?
So for a special article, we could transfer reserve, or was that just for?
So in, you know, my eyes, your finance reserve is unexpected, unanticipated, you know, unbudgeted things that just happen to come up, not necessarily this.
It's like an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah, usually
Yeah,
it's
that's
legal
okay.
fees or demolitions or.
Right.
Lightning struck.
HVAC. stuff.
Yeah. So basically it's emergency money.
But yeah,
Okay.
that is the intention.
Okay.
But
I mean, it's a good thought, Jake, for looking for other resources. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think us touching free cash when we agree we need to be at 500 is not an option right now. And so I'm just thinking outside the box here.
I like the golf idea.
Well, it's not our idea.
Then next year you'll be at mine.
Forward, but I agree. Every department in this town has a budget. And you've got to learn to operate within that. And if you want something that is not, can't be funded with the budget, yes, you have to find the energies or whatever to do it. It's an anniversary, it's great. But you know what? Everybody who comes before this committee looking for funding, everybody thinks they've got a great idea. And they do, if the interest is there. So I guess part of my thing is if there is interest in some sort of celebration, people will donate it
Yes.
to it.
Yep.
If it's their
You can get
interest.
commercial
And
commercial
really, there's
donors.
a lot of interest in the town, so majority rule, whatever.
Right.
A lot of
I'm
people
interested.
interested would have the funding.
I'm interested. I would pay money to see it happen.
Here we go.
Or.
For your number, Doug. Well, and I think this, you know, does this,
Okay.
saying yes to this, does it open us up to other departments going, hey, we want to have this celebration, can you give it? You know,
Well-
I think we just have to be a little careful.
I'm 100% with you. I'm on the fence about this, but it's not just another celebration. I mean, it's the 250th anniversary of the country. I believe in 1962, the town of Dayton had its 250th anniversary. And I was a little kid at the time, and I just remember everything that went on in the town. It's probably one of my first memories. I was probably about 5 years old. And, you know, my parents were very involved in all the goings on. So, you know, I just don't think it's, you know, I think it's a little more important than another department, but I'm 100% with you. I'm on the fence.
I am right there with you. And, you know, if I had the 8 grand, I'd give it to them. But I think when you're talking about a town's budget and as tight as we're running, I think we have to really think about this.
Mhm.
That's all.
No, I agree.
So the 250 anniversary committee doesn't have an operating budget. They're kind of going through the historical with Pat Gales. And I believe we did knock down her budget a little bit last year when we were doing operational budgets. I mean, not $8,000 worth, but.
And I guess in this arena too, this is supposed to be a town celebration. I would imagine that they could piggy bank or join together with the recreation department, parks, somebody, another organization within town where it can be a group effort, not necessarily just the historical society.
Yeah, with the zero-based budgeting, like the Parks and Rec, nobody budgeted for the, you know, and like there's not extra money in anyone's budget, especially doing the zero base. But I know what you're saying, yeah.
I think we've got to start thinking outside the box like that. We've got to start thinking where we can help each other, where it's not just a one-lane road. Because I think that's responsible.
I used to live in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and they wanted to build this really, elaborate jungle gym type of thing. I mean, this was like as big as this building. And each area of business paid some money so that one of the boards would have the name of the company on it. And they raised all the money that way.
That's what we did in the golf tournament. If you sponsored a tee box sign,
Right?
we had a sign made with your company name on it and it was on the
Right.
tee.
Yep.
And I sold a lot of those,
Yes.
Already down.
obviously for $10,000,
Yep.
So, again, I truly believe in what you're saying. And if the money was readily available, I wouldn't have even brought it up. I think it's just something I needed to bring to the table.
I mean, they're gonna vote on the town meeting, right? So if we just said
We don't
4,000.
recommend. We can either.
We just say we don't recommend, exactly.
Just say don't recommend.
We can do either one. We can come up with another number if you prefer.
I think that's a good idea.
Come up with
Because
Yeah, what if we came up with something?
shows
smaller?
that the town wants to do something, but maybe gives them a little incentive to
Raise.
have a golf tournament or raise some
Raise the
funds.
funds themselves.
Hit the
About a
business,
year and a half.
what little business we have.
Well, they have to give the deposit. When did she say? February? Okay, well, there's, they've.
4 months.
you
Not
can-
much golf happened between now and February.
No,
Come on, Jake.
You don't want to play with the orange balls?
but there's
Well,
a
so
lot
then,
of,
that's a good point, though. Do we lower it? Do we lower the article to say $8,000 and then say we don't recommend, but give the ability for the town to vote?
So the selectmen are making their recommendations tomorrow, so there's always a chance the selectmen won't recommend to put it to town meeting.
So what if we meet halfway and just do a minimal amount,
We can do that.
versus the whole thing and then, at least I don't look like the complete bad guy.
Sometimes we have to be the bad.
I know.
Right.
No, I would be okay with that if we did a very much smaller amount to give them a little start, but I think that you're right. I think there has to be accountability, pave your own way.
How would you feel about 496?
She's not comfortable.
$496 to get us to the 500 even.
6 of 1, a half dozen.
Yeah,
That's great.
go sideways at town meeting anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Just do our best.
Fine with that with me. That's fine with
Any
me.
other thoughts on it or a motion?
Sue, I love the look on your face. Come on, tell.
If we are gonna if we are sending a message to our departments, it's time to tighten the bootstrings, and we're serious here. We are gonna be in, especially if we wanna go ahead with the feasibility study on the elementary school, we are gonna be in some tough shape. So I am saying, hold the line. You gotta work with your budgets.
Can we say then we don't recommend this, and then depending on what the selectmen say, it might not even end up in there?
I mean, we've been telling our taxpayers we're doing the best we can here. And we gotta prioritize.
You know, we've discussed this article more than any of the big number articles.
And that's usually the way it goes.
Yeah. Because it does set a tone too.
Yeah.
Must be.
I think that's fair. I think Sue makes a good point. I think that's we can't say that we're trying to do these things, trying to be fiscally responsible and tighten, and then keep saying
Right.
yes to stuff.
How hard we worked on the budget, trying to get every department to get them down to bare bones.
You're right.
I would have to agree with Sue.
Yeah, there's already been a few departments saying that they are gonna be under budget because their budget was cut, so now they're saying that they're gonna be under budget. And there's not gonna be many funds available to transfer, like year-end transfers, like how we took a lot of from the group health insurance. We cut that budget and that's right on track, so that's not gonna have, 30 grand to transfer out,
Right.
we're gonna.
So how do we vote or not vote on this then? In this case,
Don't
we still
recommend.
do we still
Yeah,
need to vote on
that's-
the article and then say nay, or do we just say nothing?
I assume
We vote to support the article. We read the article and it's up or down, whether or not we support it.
the motion would be, from our standpoint, the motion would be to not recommend $8,000 be expended under the article.
And then you would vote up or down on whether you.
You're right,
wanted that,
on-
yeah. Yep.
If that were the motion.
I make a motion that we vote to not recommend Article 13 with the expenditure of $8,000 by the Historical Society as presented in the article.
I second it.
All in favor?
Doug, aye.
Susan, I.
Ron, aye.
Peter, I.
Tracy, I.
Tom, I.
Yep. Jake, I.
It's,
I know.
I'm hesitating. He caught me off guard. I don't know what he's
As amended, right? So it passes as amended.
yes.
Well, not
Recommendation.
Yeah, so the motion was to not recommend.
to not recommend,
So just that finance committee does not recommend.
because it's like a double negative. They might see this and think that we funded it.
All right.
It's like those ballot questions.
I think that is all we've got.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's the not.
Do not recommend.
Just two more things from me. We will we'll schedule a meeting for prior to the special town meeting for a couple reasons. One, if the vote goes, the override vote goes one way or the other, that might change some of the recommendations, which we'll have the ability to talk about. And there also may be, obviously, we don't know what the selectmen are gonna recommend, so there might be some chance for us to discuss whether we want to meet, match, or keep our opinions. Personally, I think our opinions are where they should be. But I'm in Florida. I'll be flying while you guys are in the meeting, so Sue's gonna run the meeting. It will be for you guys, each article that has to do with money. We're typically the ones that read the article. Just a matter of just follow the person before you.
Yep.
On how it's read.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions? Like I said, I'll be flying, so you guys are on your own.
We don't meet again tomorrow. That was just a choice of
Yeah,
dates.
we have nothing scheduled, and
Okay.
we had the 17th scheduled if we needed it, but we've been through everything,
Right.
so.
Right.
We're good. The only other thing I've got for you guys, Ron sent out the minutes this afternoon. The only thing I was going to suggest is that we cut out the part where our meeting ended, which was
Okay.
clarification of the ballot questions on is the Board of Selectmen's
Okay,
meeting
because that's
Correct.
not a monetary, yeah.
and not
Okay.
our part of the meeting.
Okay.
If there's any other questions on the minutes there,
I make a motion, we vote to accept the minutes as presented and altered by Chairman Roach.
And there was a discussion about clarifying the language.
yeah, so that from there on we were done.
Okay.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Peter, aye.
Tracy, aye.
Aye, Tom, aye.
Jake, aye. That's all I have. Anybody else? Any other questions? Anything?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody.
Aye.